Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about a movie that I've been itching to see for a while. Even though I heard nothing but horrendously bad reports on it, I still was very intrigued by the idea of this movie, and I knew what to expect going in. And that movie is called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And it's a 2023 film written and directed by, and I got his name here. If I mispronounce it, I'm sorry, Reese Frake Waterfield. And it's a British film, and it's made on a very low budget. I think $100,000. I've heard though that it's so far grossed about 4 million, so it's a hit, and there is a sequel coming. And now, this is from a new subgenre that's called, I guess, the fairy tale horror film. We've had different titles such as the Banana Splits movie, which is a horror movie about the Banana Splits TV characters, children's characters. And then, of course, The Grinch That Stole Christmas. There's a horror film of The Grinch as well that I have not seen. And I hear in the future we're having a Bambi film, a horror film where Bambi gets revenge for his mother's death. So there's a lot of weird stuff out there. And when I first heard about this topic, this subgenre, I thought, this is awful. I mean, a lot of us think that, right? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going after children's memories now. You're harming children's books, stories, fairy tales, happy things. You're going to turn them into monstrous, murderous horror enterprises. Well, I didn't like the idea at first, but then I thought to myself, you know what? We just had another school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, which is terrible and horrific. The world is finished. We got nothing but gore and ugliness in this world. So I'll tell you something. I'm to the point now where I don't even care. So, you know what? Give me whatever horror movies of children's films you want. Anyway, all right, so let's go. First of all, I like the premise of this movie very much. The premise is that the character, you have to be familiar with Winnie the Pooh, which I'm not that familiar with it, maybe a little bit. The character of young boy Christopher Robin actually befriended a bunch of anthropomorphic creatures. Winnie the Pooh, the bear, Piglet, the owl, and the rabbit, and I think a donkey, called, I think it's Eeyore. And they became friends, and he talked with them, and they spoke, and he took care of them, and he'd bring them food. He would go home to his parents' house, Christopher Robin, and he'd come back to the forest. And you're talking about a place that's called the 100-Acre Wood, a big forest. And he would go take the food from his dinner table from his family and feed the animals and everything. They had a nice little relationship. But my favorite part of the movie, the best part of the movie, is the prologue, which is basically it proceeds to tell the story I just pretty much set up here. And it does it with drawings and sketches, and it's almost like reading a once upon a time fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was this boy, Christopher Robin, and he befriended all these animals. But then this movie takes on a horrific spin. What happened was, as Christopher Robin grew older, and he goes off to college to become college age, he winds up leaving the forest and leaving his friends behind and to fend for themselves. And they didn't know how to handle it. And the winter came, and they were going to starve, and they got really skinny and wasting away. And unfortunately, they had to eat their poor friend Eeyore, and then got so traumatized, as it tells us in the narration at the beginning, so traumatized by eating their friend that they got completely animalistic, reverted back to their feral and brutal state, and wanted nothing to do with humanity, looked at humanity as their enemies, and they were so mad, particularly at Christopher Robin for deserting them, that they wanted nothing more than to go on bloody rampage against people, and in particular Christopher Robin. So then that's my favorite part of the movie is the prologue that sets it up. And then it starts nice too. The first 5 minutes of this movie are nice, and you see 5 years later, we see the 100-Acre Wood. And there's Christopher Robin and I don't know if it's his fiance or bride-to-be, I can't recall now. But he's taking her into the woods because he wants to show her these creatures. And she doesn't believe that these creatures really are real and can talk. They think they were just a figment of young Christopher the boy's imagination, but she's going to indulge him anyway. And they look, and as they go into the woods, they discover things they don't want to see. There's a gravestone for ER, and you see blood here and there. And without going too crazy, telling every little detail about it, it turns out that Piglet and Winnie the Pooh attack them, and they're very, very murderous and violent, evil, and they just want to destroy them. And that's the beginning. And after that, the story shifts over to 5 female students that are unrelated to this thing. Just another 5 females, actually, 5 girls who are university students, and they decide to rent a cabin in the 100-acre wood area. And they come across Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. And you can guess what happens from there. Now, what do you want when you see a film like this? You know it's going to be ridiculous. You know it's going to be savage, and it is that. First of all, the best thing I could tell you if you're looking for it is the gore and the kills and the carnage is just what you would expect. Lots of blood, lots of carnage, lots of inventive kills and different ways to get your rocks off if that's what you're into. And I've seen a lot of movies like that. You know, when I'm in one of those offbeat moods, I like to watch those kind of slasher horror films, okay? I don't expect that much out of them. However, the problem to me with this film is that for some reason, the villains, and there are only 2 of them, there's Winnie the Pooh and there's Piglet. They're played by 2 men, 2 large men wearing, I guess, overalls and clothes and jeans maybe, and shoes, and they have hands, and they're kind of humanoid versions, and they're in masks. In other words, they're supposed to be Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, but really they're just 2 guys, one of them in a funny-looking bear mask that smiles all the time, which is kind of creepy, and the other one in a pig mask. And they go around creating their havoc and their carnage that way. It's almost like you're watching a movie of a couple of serial killers that don animal masks, you know? Now, I wonder why that is, right? You wonder, well, why don't they make it like animals? They're supposed to be animals. I guess they're kind of half human and half animal by this time as they grew. Anyway, the director said that the reason he was able to make this movie was because Winnie the Pooh, the story, fell into the public domain, so he has the right to use the name and the idea and all that. But he can't use the iconic Disney characters. You can't have the little Pooh Bear so high in a red t-shirt. So you had to have these kind of hybrid things in the masks. But these, you know, whatever. That's the one thing. But when you're watching these characters, the villains, you don't really feel like they have no real personality or anything or any. They're just doing their thing. Now, I love the Halloween movies with Michael Myers. I love even more the Friday the 13th films with Jason Voorhees in the hockey mask. You might say, well, those guys are silent, you know. And if I didn't mention it before, these characters vowed after Christopher Robin left them to never speak again. They used to be able to speak as cartoon characters. They don't speak anymore. But they can't use the iconic images of them, so they have these guys. And some people have pointed out that the character of Tigger is not in the movie or mentioned or anything, and I think that's because, as I'm reading, the idea is that it won't be for a couple of years yet before the rights lapse into the public domain, where Tigger is also a candidate to be in one of these movies. And since there's a sequel that's going to come out of this, I think you're going to be seeing Tigger later on. I'm just guessing in the sequel. However, so basically what you're looking at again is you're looking at tons of gore, tons of different kill techniques, the kind of stuff you want, the trappings of slasher horror films. So that part's good, but there's something missing. There's something dull, and there's something, I don't know, not drawn out character-wise, not just with the victims, as you expect. You expect that a lot of times the victims are going to be non-defined, but not always in these films are they non-defined. A lot of times. It's mostly, as I say, the fact that even though Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th and Halloween are silent, there's something about them where they have an aura about them. You know Michael has a persona. You know that Jason has a persona. There's no persona anything to these two, I don't know, man creatures slash creature things. And yeah, it's just kind of a dull affair. Now I watched this film twice, both times. One of them was later on in the day. One of them was early 8 o'clock the following morning. Both times I found myself nodding off. I was like falling asleep. Even I managed to see the whole movie. I wouldn't do a review unless I saw the whole movie eventually. But what I'm saying is, I still managed to drift off because it just these goings on, even with all the mayhem and the blood and everything, but just kind of dull, you know. I'd heard reports that the movie was so dark, it's filmed so dark that you can't see anything what's going on. I didn't see that happen. On the contrary, I was able to see things. I don't know what people are talking about. The copy that I saw was you could see what was happening. It wasn't too dark. So, and I think that pretty much covers it, you know. It's I don't know why. I'm still going to keep the movie and probably see it again, but on a scale of 4 stars, I'm going to give Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 1.5 stars out of 4. Um, Maybe it deserves less, but I do like the premise. I'm giving it an extra half star for the premise and the setup at the beginning, the first opening bits of the film. I like the feel of it. And that's it, folks.